Of all the clubs in the world, perhaps the most extraordinary and exclusive is the Guinea Pig Club. That group of Second World War veterans who suffered terrible injuries and were then treated by pioneering surgeon Archie McIndoe. Today, there are just a handful left. I've come to the Polish Cultural Centre in West London to meet one of the few surviving members of that club, to hear his remarkable life story. So you were born in Poland. When were you born?
I was born 18/4/1922. That's confidentially, I tell you.
I won't tell anyone. I think you're an imposter. You look about 30 years younger.
Thank you.
And how old were you when you left Poland?
I was 15.
Why did you leave?
My parents decided to emigrate to Argentina.
So your parents were worried about the coming war?
Yes, in a certain way, yes, they had experience passing through the First War, and they knew the Second War is unavoidable.
Roger Morehouse is a Second World War historian who specialises in the Polish experience of war.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it? And it shows us, I suppose, that migration is not a new concept. I think there's a minority that left Poland in the interwar period. What's a much more common story in that time, I think, is actually migration back into Poland, because there was, of course, this massive Polish diaspora, across Europe and into America and beyond, which was the result largely of the tribulations that Poland had suffered in the 19th century, the partitions, the risings mainly against Russian rule in the 19th century. So when Poland is independent again after 1918 and reformed and independent, that's when a lot of those members of that diaspora come back and sort of grasp the opportunity to sort of remake their lives back in Poland. So I think the experience of Jan with his family, that they actually went in the other direction, is quite exceptional. I haven't heard that before. It's quite a remarkable story.
And when you heard the terrible news that Hitler had invaded Poland, how did you feel?
I felt I had very upsetting what my country only had such a short time of living independently, and I knew what their volunteers going to England to fight Germans during that time. And I applied for that advertisement. I think it was mostly British, French, who decided to emigrate, and I joined in.
But you, as a young boy, your mother and father, they'd taken you to Argentina to be safe from the war, and now you were going back to the war.
Yes.
What did your parents say?
Yes, my mother, for the last months before my ticket arrived for the journey to England, was every time when we sat to have a meal, she was looking and crying. And I was so happy the sooner I could get on the boat to England. So I thought somebody have to go and face it too. And I decided that nobody will stop me going.
And when you arrived in the UK, how were you treated? Were the people happy to see you?
I think English people were almost to us, they give everything hard. They knew we came to England and we had that determination to fight with them. We had everything we couldn't expect no more as the people give us during that time.
There was a tremendous enthusiasm for Poland, which is an interesting aspect of sort of interwar relations, that there was tremendous sympathy for Poland in Britain in 1939, which really didn't abate, actually. There was a popular sympathy, and this is one of the things that kind of drives the government in the direction of the declaration of war on the 3rd of September, is that they know that if they backtrack on this, that the popular sentiment for Poland would sort of not allow the government to survive at that point. So I think that was a real thing. But by the middle of the war, perhaps Poland has dropped off the headlines somewhat, and there are bigger fights to be had. But there was still a tremendous sympathy for the Poles, and I think that's what Jan's story reflected.
What did you join? What branch of the services did you join?
Yes, soon as I had my medical board, you had to decide what unit you select for yourself. And of course, when you're young, you thought the flying was the most exciting for the young fellow, because as you know, there was much better pay, more promotion, and you say you get also big, I would say, popular
Really?
between the people.
Popular
Because we had for boys in RAF uniforms always big respect what they were facing.
And popular with the women?
Thank you for asking me. They were wonderful. I tell you why. Because, you see, we posed during that time. We wanted to learn English. And we've been told the quicker, that's true, to learn English if you find yourself girlfriend. Because you find yourself girlfriend and you start communicating with her, you see, by letter. And that's sometimes you, instead of sleep, you're thinking, how could you put that letter in proper wording? We attended to school in spare hours to learn English, but we also had lots of support from the girls till Americans came. When Americans came, they made little competition with that dollars, you see, but never mind, we were before them. We came to England and we felt we had upper hand over Americans.
The girls like the airmen, full stop. The dashing airman is the thing of stereotype. But again, it's a story that he confirmed, that the Poles had the whiff of something exotic about them. They're handsome, cheekboned men, and all in uniform. It was what more do you want?
Jan joined a Polish unit within RAF Bomber Command.
My first service was Wellington. Wellington, 2 engine bombers, very old. First as the war started, that was the best bomber.
Were you doing daylight raids in those Wellingtons?
Yes, but we've been doing mostly flying at night.
Okay.
Our mission, what we used to do, because we've been trained to fly at night.
He was a rear gunner in Wellingtons, first of all, flying out of RAF Bramcote. The first sort of missions he undertook were largely training missions, but they tended to go leafleting over occupied France and Vichy France as well. That's what sort of counted as training missions for them. And it was actually when he was retraining for combat operations over Germany that he had the crash.
During the takeoff, one engine failed. And that's when I crashed, you see.
How many minutes after taking off?
Not very far.
Jan's plane, a Wellington bomber, hadn't gained sufficient altitude to withstand an engine failure. The result was catastrophic. It's a reminder that air crews faced danger even when they weren't facing the enemy.
Bomber Command losses are up above 55,000, and it's a loss rate of about 40-odd%, which is a remarkably dangerous job.
Jan was knocked unconscious in the crash, but soon came to.
When you woke up, were you bleeding? Were you hurt?
I didn't feel what I was seriously received certain injuries, but I was very wobbly, and I knew I have to slowly try to reach the front of the plane and see what's happening to my members of the crew.
Were they your friends? Were you close with them by that stage of the
Yes,
war? Yeah.
very much so. We were more than brothers together. And as I reached my pilot, I've been trying to pull him out, and I knew he was still stripped with his belt. I couldn't pull him out, and I thought, what I'm going to do now, because at that time plane explode with lots of fuel who spread underneath, and I was left hopeless. So I couldn't see nothing, so I covered my left side of my face with my left hand, and with my right hand I tried to look for exit. But I was already, my flying suit was ignited in fire. And I was on my ground trying to get far as possible out of bit of distance from the plane. And during that time, people who came and tear my flying suit from me, because you see, yeah, when the plane exploded, there some of the fuel was everywhere, and some spray on my flying suit.
And did any of the other crew survive?
No, you see, because they were in front, and the impact, you know, the heaviest one is always in front, you see, because there is engine and so on. I was lucky because I was rear gunner, you see.
And how bad were your injuries?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. I would have been happier if somebody during that time really shoot me a few times, because the pain was shocking. And soon as ambulance came, they also start telling me, don't you worry, you'll be all right, that's nothing happened much. We're taking you to hospital. And they took me to Cosford Hospital near Wolverhampton, RAF Hospital. And during that time, after 1 week, that big doctor came, Sir Archibald McIndoe.
Archibald Hector McIndoe was a pioneering surgeon who founded a new centre for plastic and jaw surgery in East Grinstead, Sussex. There he would treat hundreds of wounded airmen.
Remarkable man, New Zealander, who had started work here at the beginning of the war, and particularly as a pioneer in facial reconstruction, but also particularly plastic surgery. And that was a science that really was, to some extent, in its infancy. I think the real beginnings of that actually date to the First World War, but it was still somewhat in its infancy. And of course, for people like McIndoe, airmen of the wartime generation, very often like Jan, who had suffered horrific burns, provided a sort of tremendous scope for him to actually practice the art. And they were very quickly dubbed the guinea pigs because a lot of what McIndoe was doing was essentially experimental.
Jan was transferred into McIndoe's unit for treatment of his terrible injuries.
And when McIndoe, how many operations did he do on you to repair the skin?
He did about, I would say, 15, what I know. But one was the biggest one, so that was about 6 hours lasting. You see on that.
And can you show me with your finger, where did he replace the skin? Where did he replace?
Yes, mostly from your body, you see. Because, you see, your main skin has about 4 different layers of skin. So they don't take whole 4, they take half, maybe 2 thin skin. And of course they tear the one what is already been bit of recover, but they have to remove that burnt skin because it always will stay very red, you see, and ugly because I mean, it's shrinking, maybe, you know, they have to completely tear that skin and put the new one. So you see, they take you for a long operation.
How many months were you in the East Grinstead Hospital?
Yes, I spent about 4 months in East Grinstead Hospital. Hospital was so overloaded with new cases coming day and night. So what they do, once they little help you to recover, they send you to your station. I arrived to my station. I reported to my commanding officer. So he looked at me and he said, well, warrant officer, I was already promoted then to warrant officer from sergeant, you see. He said, and what do you think you're going to do? Looking at me, I said, sir, what I want to do, I want to do what I was taught to do, fly. So he looked at me, he said, didn't you have enough flying? Yes. I said, sir, but that's what I want to do. I said, I decided and I thought I still should continue.
Then you flew Lancasters?
Yeah.
For how many missions did you fly Lancasters?
About 12, I did 12.
Again, as rear gunner in Lancaster. So keeping the thing safe up in the air and making sure they're not sort of crept up on. Very often the German night fighters particularly used to try and sort of creep up on British aircraft from behind and from below. That was very often the tactic. And they identified a sort of blind spot to the rear and below. So the rear gunner is essentially, they didn't fall asleep because he's out there on his own. He's only got radio contact. There's nobody around him. So it's quite a lonely job. It's a very cold job as well because you're not fully enclosed in the rear gun emplacement of a Lancaster. There's a lot of wind getting into you, so it's an extremely cold place to be. So the main thing is to keep your wits about you, to not fall asleep, crucially, and to keep your eyes open for enemy attack.
And when you were flying, were you more scared, more traumatized about another crash, or was your mind okay?
No. You know why? Because I'm glad you asked me that, because I couldn't remember to tell you everything. Because I had such a hatred to Germans, for that, because I was already almost disfigured, you know what I mean.
There does seem to be this sort of mentality amongst Polish soldiers and airmen fighting outside Poland that they are very motivated to sort of restore Poland, to avenge Poland for everything that it suffered. And I think this is something that still we, in the Western narrative of World War II, we still, I think, underestimate the degree to which Poland suffered in World War II. I think there's a sort of rather lazy assumption that it's something similar to what we endured. And that's really way off the mark. And there's very clearly a Western war and an Eastern war in World War II. And the Western war is relatively chivalrous, and you can't apply the same sort of criteria that we do in the West to the Eastern War. The Eastern War is absolutely brutal. Look at Poland's death toll is upwards of 5 million. It's astonishing compared to our own. So you can see that actually I think the mentality amongst Polish soldiers and airmen in World War II that they were fighting to avenge that is something very real. It's not just apocryphal, it's a real thing.
Jan survived the rest of the conflict, and after the war took part in a unique event.
Jan, at the end of the war, was one of the very few, if not the only, Pole to be marching in the victory parade at the end of the war in 1946. And again, that's a remarkable story that Poles know very well, and it's something that still sort of sticks in Polish throat very much, is that they were effectively excluded from the victory parade in spite of everything that they'd given to the Allied war effort. And bear in mind, of course, we forget, but Poles were present at Tobruk, they were present at Monte Cassino, they're present at Arnhem, they're present at Narvik, they're present in the Normandy campaign, they're present in the air of the Battle of the Britain, 303 Squadron, and others. They're present in the battle at the Atlantic. They are at Britain's side in every theatre of World War II. And yet, at the end of the war, because of the political decisions, the communists had taken over Poland by 1946. The new communist government had been recognised by the British, and the decision was made to invite an official party from Poland itself, from communist Poland, to the victory parade. And that invitation was turned down by the communists. And then the invitation was not extended to the many thousands of Polish veterans who are still on UK soil, which it was really a shameful decision. But it was one essentially it was a sop to Stalin. These are the early days of tentative cooperation between the great powers. We're still, to some extent, in the sort of honeymoon period of the Grand Alliance. And it's, as I said, it's something that still sticks in Polish throats, that they were not invited to participate in the victory parade. But Jan, as a guinea pig, as one of McIndoe's patients, was included effectively in the parade on that basis. So he is potentially the only Polish participant in the victory parade of 1946, which is a remarkable claim to fame.
Jan was now also part of the exclusive Guinea Pig Club, which started as a drinking club for airmen who had been operated on at least twice by McIndoe or his team.
The Guinea Pig Club, we hear about it. Was it important for you all to stay together and stay in the club?
Yes, we used to continue to have our reunion there for many, many years after when war ended. And some of the boys came far from Australia, from Canada, for 2 days reunion to use Grinstead. But now is discontinued because it's very few left those boys here.
There were once more than 600 members of the club. Now, fewer than 10 remain. And they all have Archie McIndoe to thank, not just for rebuilding their faces, but for rebuilding their lives.
We could walk to town. We were allowed to go evening, to cinema. So sometimes he will meet us in cocktail bar, just for his chauffeur will wait with the Rolls Royce outside. And he will come, have a glass of beer or glass of wine to give us more self-confidence, you know what I mean. He was man. What he knew, not only to put the skin on our faces, but how to rebuild our mental, feeling. And we will remember him for the rest of our life. That's what happened.